questions. That's what I try to do is I'll jump with questions on those kind of posts to, get more knowledge from them or help them expand, just to continue the conversation. It doesn't have to be great posts and then let me come in on top of that and show how cool I am so I can gain followers and stuff, right? Like, I get that's cool to do and everybody always wants to build on each other, but there's also a way to take from one another in that post and expand on it.
Tom, I'm glad you brought that, and we went live right when you were talking about that. Well, and I thought what you said was brilliant. So I just want to, for anybody that's watching or will pop in, welcome to Sassy Saturday Live, where Amir and I we host amazing individuals to come in here on a topic. And so what we started this conversation off with was we were talking about people that make posts and kind of adding value in there. And so, there's this thought that like, hey man, great post, versus then you'll see somebody else post something that says the worst thing that you could do is say, hey, great post, and then not add anything to value. And so then I use the example because Mandy had complimented Nick on his TikToks that he's doing. And so I kind of made the comment about Tom, where if Tom comes in talking about like training sales or sales training, like he has such a wealth of knowledge on this that like I'm not going to be able to go, well, Tom, have you thought about? I'm not going to be able to top his knowledge. And so at some point, like maybe I can just say, hey, Tom, like I'm just here to learn from you. And that in itself is adding value, because then Tom knows like, okay, I'm creating content that is at least bringing knowledge to people.
Yep. Aren't we here to teach, Tom?
Yeah, that's what I think. And just because you can't add value, with adding into it, or, like I was bringing up Jesse Lysak, right, where she talks about first party data, and it's not a realm for me but I'm learning from her. And so when I want to comment and make sure I show her support and get that to my network, I'll add a question in there to elaborate on, or, learn a little bit more from the context that she put. And that's still added value. That's still continuing the conversation. That's still allowing people to allow us to have conversation. And that's the whole point of, the networking of LinkedIn is the magic truly happens in the comments. It's not the post, right? The post itself is just the jump off point, but it's what happens next and where that magic comes in, the people that you're, collaborating with, connecting with in the comments, and building conversation. So what I was telling Josh is, on my post, he's not really well versed in the sales world. Ask questions, seek more, right? He's still adding a great comment with real value, more than 2 words that says great post. You're saying this is a really great post for, like Amir, you do this with me, right? Amir, you're project management. You're not fully sales, but you've learned so much from the ship and being in those circles.
I'm a sales VP now. I'm the sales VP now.
You're a VP of sales, right? And you come in on my post and ask questions, right? Or you're like, interesting, Tom, how this can apply to not just sales, but I see how this can come over here. And that's more added value of just having that discussion, versus sitting in a group of 5 people talking about something and you're just like, yeah, that was cool. And then you stop. Like, do you do that in person? Somebody says something really great and you're just like, okay, cool, great. And then the conversation, no, you keep going and you continue to add or ask a follow-up question. Same stuff can happen in LinkedIn. It's a conversation starter.
If you don't know stuff about a topic, you ask or you listen, right? I mean, if Tom's talking about, cold calling or, warm calling these days, that's the hot topic. And when 2 salespeople talk to each other about that, so it's an interesting thing for me. I get to see different perspectives. Now, I'm not going to jump in and tell Tom how to call because he has had that experience and he might laugh me off. And, I could appear as a guru or something, and I'm the sales guru. I mean, there are so many out there these days, right? Who knows where they came from? So, I should have done that maybe, that, hey, I'm the top salesperson of the world, and here I am. And I could post any bullshit I wanted, and people would just be, hey, man, this guy's great. And you don't need credentials to post on LinkedIn.
You don't. That's platforms for everybody. I have my preferences. You have your preferences. We've all talked about the unpopular opinion of where sales content is going on LinkedIn. But there's 800 million users. There's enough pie for everybody. Like, each to their own, and you put your blinders on, right? Be the change you want to see. If you don't like that kind of stuff, then go a separate way, right? But don't bash on people or tell them they're doing it wrong or they're all this stuff, right? The only thing that that really does kick me off on LinkedIn is people that talk at people. I'm just not a fan there. I'm not a big fan of the audience builders. I'm not looking at somebody that just every day just talks at their crowd. I want to connect with people no matter what their content is, as long as they are talking with their audience and I feel like I can be a part of their tribe. If I can't do that and you're just talking at me every day, like I'm out, right? I'm not going to really engage. I don't want to be there for that. I want to talk.
How would you differentiate talking at and interacting with?
For me, I look for a couple of things. One, I always go to the comment section, right? You can tell the ones that don't ever get involved, they just talk and drop their post and then dip. I'm not a fan, right? I think it's just so egotistical. It's so ridiculous that you think people should just worship what you have to say. And then if I stop, like, I respect that somebody stopped the scroll for me. Do you understand how important that is, right? That somebody interrupted their feed to stop and acknowledge with a like or a comment, whatever you put out for the day. So when they comment, I feel I owe it to you to say at least a thank you or at least a reply of some sort because you stop for me. That's huge. All of you guys do it for me every day, and I love it because some people post every day, and like to get that continuous love from somebody takes a lot. So I respect that, and I want to give that back. So I look at comments. I look at their content too of is it promoting thoughts? Is it asking and opening people up to conversate with them versus this is my truth, deal with it. Like I'm talking at you and that's just the way it is. And then some that like either delete their posts because some trolls came at them and they couldn't handle it or they were bothered by it. That stuff, like you should embrace that shit, enjoy it, talk it out. And I believe that we're at a point where we can build a lot of relatability with people with having common differences. Look at the 5 of us in a room. Like not all of us connect, but I can find a relatable point with all of you and still be friends with you, whether viewpoints might be different, might be not on the same page. I still can find common ground with you that we can lock in and build a friendship on. And so that's the kind of stuff I look for in people's content to differentiate who's showing up for their audience and their tribe versus who's showing up to build an audience. I'm not here for an audience.
Well, and it's interesting you say that because the 5 of us here are in completely different areas of our professions. Mm-hmm. We have Mandy, who is in like customer success, customer service. We have Amir, who's in project management, but he's also in like that customer experience. We got Tom, who's really in that sales development, sales leadership. We got Nick, who's really into also the sales aspect, but in a different spot. And then you got me. And so, so it's interesting to say that because Tom, we're sitting in the same room, and if we were at a barbecue together, like we could chat and we could. Yeah.
I couldn't. I can't stand Josh. I don't know how I became.
It's okay. It's okay virtually, but I can't be.
Nice, Amir.
Yeah. Well,
see, here's the thing.
This is about
and this is just for Mandy. There was this comment that Josh posted, or there was a post, and Mandy responded with a curious emoji that I was just playing with Josh, and I think friendships get deeper. You build relationships, and they go on and on till you're comfortable with that person. I'm comfortable with Tom, so much that it. You could joke with some of your friends like this, but not with everyone. So once you cross that line is, one of those things. It's trust, I think.
Well, and I like, because Tom was talking about, bringing that value, and I'll be like straight up and honest is like my last post where I talked about, it was inspired by Eddie, who he said something about, when salespeople fail to make quota and we just fire them. And so then I was like, I told Eddie, I said, I'm going to totally steal what you're talking about, and I'm going to make it my own post. Of course, I'll give you credit for, the inspiration behind it. And so then, it's because when you have somebody, especially like me, who is trying to transition into it's, and I've had this conversation, like, and Tom will tell you, like, my very first few posts that I made related to like SaaS or B2B was I would message Tom and I go, Tom, what do you think about this post and how would you word it? And Tom would kind of coach me on, no, I think this is good. I would tweak it here. Here's how you can really kind of create engagement. And it's because the question is like, okay, I have 9,000 transitioning teachers that are in my my audience, right? But I want to create engagement with people that are in the SaaS or B2B or B2C space. And so how do I transition from this area to this area? And then Tom and I didn't have this discussion, and he said, Josh, you could create the most fantastic post, the most thought-provoking post in the entire world, but until kind of the algorithm kind of catches up with you, that you're changing, and you're not going to get a lot of feed. Kind of the same thing he said. If I make a post about sales, training and leadership, I'm going to get a lot of engagement. If I talk about, say, something like autism, hardly anybody's going to see my post, even if it's the best post in the whole world. And so that kind of creates an interesting, how do you start transitioning yourself into kind of, not only, and I hate using the word thought leadership, but as somebody that actually people will stop and scroll for. And that is when we had that Jesse Outlet made this point the other day when it was Eddie and Jesse on Whiskey Wednesday. He said, if you can get somebody to stop on their social media and go to your website, you have done a good job.
Yep. And that's why, I look at LinkedIn so much like SEO, right? Because that was my background, right? It's the space that I truly love more than anything because it's ever evolving and thrilling. But when I look at LinkedIn and some of these platforms, I feel like it's the same thing, because if you want to transition your lane, you can't do that overnight, because the whole point about LinkedIn is finding your lane, right? It's going to push you to your audience, what you're engaging in, and it's watching your behaviors. So for me, I talk only about sales development, right? All that space. But if I go off and talk about a tangent, it might not do well because the algo is like, whoa, what is this? I can't compute this. I don't know where you want me to display it, right? Because this isn't what you typically write about. So it starts to learn your behaviors and push you into your network, into the people. And so when you get into your lane, it'll push. So that's why I was telling Josh, right? It takes time. If you're going to pivot, be comfortable with knowing your first few posts just might not get what you're used to. And it's not bad. It just means the algo needs to adjust and understand where you're going to go so it can start catering to that. And your behaviors are going to do that too. The people you're liking on and commenting on, which lane you want to move to, is going to take some time to get up there. But I saw this question up here. Do you think that one reason why people don't post more questions is fear of being vulnerable?
So
1,000%.
I'm learning new stuff about StreamYard, and so there are these questions that are onto the side over here, and I didn't realize that you could actually click show,
pull them in,
and it will pop up into the. So this is thank you, StreamYard.
This is
cool.
Saturday learning. I love it.
Yeah. So this is a question that somebody asked, and I think this would be really good for Nick to answer, because I know that he has really kind of put himself out with being on the creative side with creating these TikToks. And he said, you know what, I don't care if anybody thinks they're bad, because I realize, come on, we all start making TikToks off the bat. They're not going to be nearly as good as the second one, the third one, the fifth one, the 100th one. So Nick, out of curiosity, do you think, one reason why people don't post more questions is for the fear of being vulnerable?
I think that's one aspect of it. I think another aspect sometimes is people don't, and sometimes they don't even know the right question to ask, right? There's been times where I've been engaging in a piece of content because it's like, oh man, this is way above my level. I've never seen anything like this before, and I don't even know what question to ask, So there's that. There's also, I would say ego plays into it too, right? So I guess that's kind of the same thing as fear of being vulnerable. But to Tom's point, there's a lot of people out there who are just really confident, oh, I know everything, and I'm just going to put my stuff out here, and I don't have any questions about it. And I think some of those folks are less open-minded and less growth mindset, more fixed mindset. I don't think there's too many of those out there, but there certainly are a few.
I would agree, right? I think those are the same points. Is that, you know, it's vulnerability. Sometimes when I show my card on Jesse's post, right, saying that I don't know what she's talking about or I've never heard that term, sometimes you're like, damn, how are people going to perceive that, right? Because you have a large network. They're like, oh, Tom didn't know that. What the hell, right? And you get into these thoughts of all this stuff where you build up this scenario. But I think be confident in that. Be okay to ask. And sometimes you could just, you know, some people ask questions even knowing the answer. I know where it's going to go. I know the answer to the question I'm asking. I just want to ask it to get the convo going, right? That's another great point.
That's a great way to tee someone up, you know. So it's like so great because sometimes you can tell from someone's post or whatever, you know, whatever it is they're putting out there. You're like, oh, this person really knows what they're talking about, and here's the second layer, and I can tell from this post who their audience is, and there's an extra point that I want them to be able to express. So let me craft a question to tee them up to be able to like knock it out of the park.
Knock it out of the park, right? That's how you build community. That's how you build friendships, right? If I know something, I could tee Josh up, right? Bring him into that and bring this question to it. Or I know that Eddie B might be just scratching the surface in this post with 4 words, but I'm going to tee him up to just open this shit wide open so he can get his engagement. We can have a full-on conversation and say, Eddie, I love this point here, but like, why aren't you telling the people about this part? But let's expand on that, right? Or things like that. That's the whole point of that comment section, is to support one another, pull people into the convo, tee it up. And yeah, I just think it's vulnerability. It just comes down to scared. You've got this whole shit built up in your hand on how things are going to play out. But we should be seeking to ask questions, seek to understand and be understood, and have that dialogue. Because if the 5 of us were in a network event and you know, Amir started talking project management, I'm not going to be fearful in the 5 of us to be like, Amir, can you expand on that? I'm not really familiar with that space. You know, can you talk to me about that? So, but go ahead, Amir. I don't mean to interrupt you, and I would love for the ladies to speak too, because I feel like us men are just running the show. So
no, we are
two
not.
things there.
So very quick point before you know, I let Sarah or Mandy, you know, talk about this. I don't think, you know, there's any shame in saying that you don't know stuff. I used to, you know, teach 3D a long time ago. I conducted a few workshops, 3D animation and all that. And I was asked questions by those students in the workshop, and, you know, I couldn't answer everything. It was a complex bit of software. So I said, I don't know. I'll look this up in the book and whatever and get back to you. So even in, you know, on LinkedIn with questions to, you know, sales leaders or project leaders or anyone, if there's something that you don't understand or don't know, it's just, hey, what are you talking about? You know, maybe give me some info. But again, I'll also point out that if the info is out there, what's an SDR? You don't need to bother people with what's an SDR. You know, let me Google that for you. Google's there, right? So don't do that, please.
That's another good point. It's so hard to write content because you're trying to push to a large audience, right? You want all of LinkedIn to see it, right? My friend Alexis Scott had an amazing post the other day that got like 4,000 likes, 600 comments, and it was incredible, and it reached the atmosphere of LinkedIn. But like, it's hard when you niche down because it is, you know, I'm in sales development. I can't reach out to 800 people on LinkedIn and get that big reach, because I'm only going to get 100, 150, 200 people that really know that space, like you said, Amir. So when I write out a post today, I said, you know, SDRs. Should I have put sales development reps? Should I have just put SDRs, right? Like, how do you play to that to where it can be seen and people can understand it? And that's an interesting point you add there. But
here's a funny thing. You know, sorry, Sarah, before I hand off to you. Remember RevCon?
Yeah.
Okay. So I attended that RevCon, and that's how I got involved with all of the salespeople, right? So Dan and Ivan had a conversation on the last day or on the last hour or something, right? And they were talking about leads and lead generation or something like that. And someone in the chat asked, what are incoming leads or inbound leads and something? And both looked at each other and said, wait, is that a joke? Is that a real question? And I was like, yeah, most of the people who are attending don't know your jargon, right? So that's something when you do tech, you don't use jargon generally. And I think that applies to sales demos and stuff as well, right? Don't use technical stuff. Try and solve problems. Try and solve, ask questions rather than throw technical stuff at people. So just a minor thing there.
So here's
you know.
something that's very interesting, and we like, and it's something Amir and I have talked about, and like Sarah and we can pop in on this, is the fact that we've talked about project management, and then there was a post about data analytics the other day, and so Amir, and so Sarah will be very, very familiar with the whole project management, where there's these terms that we use, and they're completely different in spaces. So and I'll talk about the data analytics, because Amir showed me, he's like, what is this? Like, this is that. He showed me this, I don't even know what to call it, right? But it was this breakdown of this process of data, analyzing the data from like a corporate scheme. And it's this very like detail oriented, like it's got lines and graphs and dashes everywhere. And I said, well, in education, data analysis is, we just score it on a 1 to 4. Does the student know it or not? And based on a 1 to 4, like, it's so very simplified. And then but he shows us. I was like, I need a few drinks to even comprehend what all is going on in this. And it's the same thing, like like with Sarah and project management is like.
I'll interrupt you for a second. Sorry,
Amir,
Sarah led. No. I want to pump Sarah up here, because she actually led data analytics teams for large data analytics team, and that's she can answer to that.
Well, I was just going to say, I want you to share the post with me. I'm all about the data analytics. I talk about project management often just because the work I do kind of fits into that. It's often the work that I've done over the last 10 years is project management, but it's very specifically in the context of digital transformation and data analytics. But when you start to talk about things like machine learning, people get glassy-eyed. But when you talk about managing a project, it resonates a lot more. So that's why I tend to keep my content more focused on that.
Well, and
Sarah, don't you think that what you talk about as part of machine learning or AI or complex analytics is for a different audience, though? And even the project management that you talk about is not for the basic audiences.
That's right.
It's interesting. LinkedIn doesn't push that kind of stuff. We talk about it all the time. Saad will talk about it, right? It's very hard to get super granular on LinkedIn, and it's hard to read context sometimes. Sometimes you'll see somebody's post and like it needs more context, right? And you're just like, like that's not the point you were trying to make. I've seen some people get really ripped apart in their post because it wasn't clear. And then they have to come and explain themselves so much in the comments, and they'll end up just deleting the post or whatnot because they get, not granular. It's a very hard balance of knowing when to get too deep and when not to get deep, and remove that jargon, because LinkedIn's very public. Like, us salespeople want our own little platform. Somebody needs to create a social media platform for just salespeople, because we get way too crazy with it, and we don't realize the eyes that are seeing things and the jargon that's being put out there that, I don't know what the hell you're talking about, dude. I don't know any of that. What are you saying? It has to be simplified to get that reach.
I think it boils down to what are your objectives on the platform.
That too.
And I think, I try to tailor my content not to necessarily the expertise or the niche that I want to present myself as, but who are the people that I hope to reach? What would resonate with them? And, how do I adjust accordingly? And it's a process. Like, some days you just don't feel like coming up with something that's thought-provoking or whatever, and you put something out that's simple, and I think that's okay too.
I did it today, and it blew up for me. I've posted for like 2 weeks, really long-winded shit. I've been really, really getting into this groove, And now today is my best post in a minute, and under an hour it like freaking skyrocketed. I'm like, all right, and it was one sentence, that I was like, okay, I didn't have it in me today. I don't post on the weekends anymore. I used to, but now I'm just over it. I kind of let my weekends be my time. But if I'm gonna post on the weekend, it is like you said, very simple. Not, I try to share podcasts that I'm on because people are out and about, like fun content, because nobody wants to think over the weekend. I don't need some long-winded like sales post or thing right now. I'm trying to drink a beer at the pool.
Well, it's it's funny you mentioned that, Tom, because there's something you said the other day that has been in my head for the past 4 days, and you'll it was the way we said goodbye on the phone. So I'm having a conversation with Tom, right? And I said, okay, cool. All right, well, I'll talk to you later. Tom says, I'll talk to you soon. And I hung up and I thought about the difference between those two responses. And again, this is not even like business related. This is just like an interaction. And like this, like I've thought about this over and over and over, and how that just that I'll talk to you later, I'll talk to you soon. And I almost like, well, I won't say almost, I actually did, because I have this stupid bleeding heart. But I thought I was like, man, I need to call Tom back and say, no, I'll talk to you soon instead of later. Obviously Tom would just like laugh and go, no, you're fine. Like I get it. But it's like the things that, and so like I need to make a post about this. Like I need to make like that.
Word choice is important, right? Like it's word choice is all important. Like you've been doing it a lot because you've been around salespeople that I watch you now, and you say out of curiosity all the time, right? You learn that word choice of, if I was to ask, and I hate to make this sexist, please forgive me, but if I ask Sarah, hey Sarah, how much do you weigh? She's gonna be like, what the hell? Like, no, I refuse. But if we're in discussion, right, and I'm like, hey Sarah, out of curiosity, what do you weigh about right now? She might almost spill that to me and be like, oh, I'm like 101. Cool, right? She'll slip that tongue because you're seeking that out of curiosity. You're kind of making it defenseless. And it's that psychological game with word choice. And like you said, Josh, like talk to you later is the typical like, I'll talk to you whenever I talk to you. There's no secured action there. But like you said, I said, talk to you soon. You were like, well, shit, yeah, we're probably going to talk again. Yeah. Like, and now there's like an expectation that I'm going to call you again soon. And we're not going to lose that conversation too long, right? We're not going to go too long without talking. And that's how I end my calls all the time, Hey, Josh, it was great, talking with you today. I'll talk to you soon. And it just lets them remember or be like, yeah, well, yeah, Tom's probably going to call me back again. Word choice plays a big part in just the psychological things that we do. And in sales, it's very important to know your sales lingo and have that language tight, because it's a battle of inches on a cold call. Let's be real. You've got 10, 15 seconds to get anywhere with that, and then to have a full-on conversation. So everything.
Can we not do that until I'm done?
It's funny.
I got interrupted by the dryer.
Right?
Sorry, I'll turn it off.
No, you're
that was loud.
You mentioned that because the other day, like a student was asking me a question. Speaking of noise in the background, and my student was like, I don't understand these independent clauses. And I go, well, let's take a deep dive on that. And so, and I was like, oh Jesus Christ. Why am I? So speaking, Mandy, I wish you would post more often, because if you haven't had Mandy come by in one of your posts, she's like the ultimate like hype person. Like she just drops and she's like, I think it was wonderful how you said, or I think that you are wonderful because, and like when Mandy visits you, it's like you are, like Dr. Scholes, when you talk to Scholes in your show.
Where are you going with this? I am dying.
Okay, so like your feet hurt, right? And then you get Dr. Scholes, and then it's like you're walking on like cloud 9. Okay. So when Mandy gets done interacting with you, like you just feel good about yourself. And so yeah.
Thank you, Josh.
So amazing.
I do think on LinkedIn, my unofficial job on LinkedIn is hype woman. I think that like a lot of what I do with LinkedIn connecting is finding people that I genuinely vibe with and then being like, hey, this person is doing this awesome thing. Go check it out. And so I do a lot of that. I would agree. But it's all genuine. Like I don't hype things I don't like, and I don't hype things that I don't genuinely relate to. So if you've gotten a Mandy uplift in your in your post,
I'm walking on clouds.
it's because
Walking
I
on
like
that
you.
sunshine. Hey, that's so funny.
That brings us to collaboration, and here again, let me hype up Mandy as well, because I've always noticed Mandy's like on my posts or comments. I mean, it's the same thing I keep doing with people, and if you see someone reciprocate, that's also about collaboration. So thank you, Mandy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that like for me personally, I run my LinkedIn a little bit different than some people do. Like, don't get me wrong. I got really excited when I got over 500 followers and I was like, yay, I grew. Like I got excited about it. But at the same time, like I'm way more into the connections than I am into the followers. And so like when somebody connects with me, like I used to kind of be like, why does somebody send me a blank connection?
Yeah.
And then I did it to other people by accident, and I've still done it because when you do the computer version of LinkedIn, you hit connect and then it says, do you want to send a message? And you add the message. If you're on your phone app version, if you hit connect, it just goes. And so when I was first learning that, I was like, shit, stop. I think I just blind sent like 5 invites. And I was like, I didn't mean it. I'm sorry. But like, I think for me, when people try to connect with me, my normal questions to them are usually, what brought you my way and how can I support you? Because really, if they're reaching out, that's what it's about, right? Like either they saw something that I did that they liked, or they're trying to build their connections and there's a way that I can help them do that. So like Sarah and I, we connected through Josh. So Josh did something, Sarah saw me, we connected because Grace and Angela posted and Sarah was connected to them. And then I ended up connecting with Sarah and now we've become really, really good friends. So I'm all about the collaboration of LinkedIn. I think that's kind of where all of the magic happens, really.
It really is. That's
Yeah.
why I tell people the magic is in the other parts. It's not the content piece. The content piece is just a jumping off point. That's, you don't have to create content to grow your network. Like we have to stop that. Another great unpopular opinion, you have to create content to make connections. My next post for tomorrow. Holla.
I think
Because
that's a
it's silly.
popular opinion.
True.
Well, we'll see what happens. I'll get some people to argue in my comments and I win. There you go, Amir.
Yeah.
The comment magic will happen either way, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing is people need to overcome that factor of getting engaged, get into the streets of LinkedIn. If you want to network, be seen, be heard, be valued, you have to get involved. Nobody's going to magically find you because you're in the corner at the dance, hiding out in the corner. Nobody's going to come grab your hand, right? Like you've got to step out there and take that step. And it doesn't mean be vulnerable. You don't have to be vulnerable on LinkedIn to succeed. You just have to be you, whatever that means, and show up, engage, find content that resonates with you and reciprocate. If I've been doing it on IG a lot more. On IG, I'm the culprit of being the lurker. I just scroll all the time. I digest everything. Now I've gotten to a point where every time I open my Instagram, everything on my feed, I'm giving a like, right? I just have to, right? To show that support, be like, I'm here, I'm liking what I'm seeing, and get involved. It goes a long way for people. And yes, Sarah, right? Like, let's call it what it is. Zoe posted about this today, Amir, is that let's be real. We all want to be liked. We all want that recognition. We all want to be seen. It's the truth. All of you in this room at the dark corners of your house are like, yeah, I would love that. So when you give a like or a comment, it does go a long way to that content creator or that person stepping out. I've watched a lot of people in the last few weeks, do their first post and everybody comes for them and riles them up and they start getting into their lane and they're like, shit, this is great feeling. And that stuff goes a long way.
Yeah.
Unpopular
Especially if
opinion.
you're-
LinkedIn is becoming more like Facebook these days.
Oh shit.
Well, I don't.
Let's not do it. No.
Not unless you're a recruiter.
No.
If you're a recruiter, yes. Or James. If you're James Perry, then yes, LinkedIn is like Facebook because James is like, here's a picture of my boat, here's a picture of my dog, and 10,000 people will comment and like it. And I'm just like, and then, you know, you could create and I always said, like, Tom can go on and go, so this weekend I saved 4,000 orphans from a burning building. And people would be like, "Wow, that's great, Tom. But have you seen a picture of James's dog?" Like, and so, like
Amir shared that in the ship the other day that he was competing. He did a project management post, and somebody shortly after posted about 2 Mustang cars about what they would love to earn in their business, and that got like 5,000 likes. And Amir's sitting at 4. He's like, "Cool, awesome, way to go! That's what I got to compete with every day. Cool." Had you put all that post on the hood of a car, you might have won.
Yeah, there you go. So, Mary, you just from now on, you need to put all of your posts on the front end of a Mustang.
Yeah, or like, you know.
I think it depends. Are you concerned about the vanity metrics? If you are, you go ahead and do that, or post similar stuff. If you aren't, if you are in it for the value you give to others, or, you know, people give to you, then you approach this in a different way as conversations, or, you know, I mean, I'm not against that sort of stuff, but who knows? I mean, LinkedIn is becoming Facebook, so hey.
Well,
Well, it's like
I
Sarah
think
said.
there's
It's what you show up for, right, Sarah? I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm so sorry. But it is to your point where you said, you know, it's, again, put your blinders on, right? Like, it is what it is. It's frustrating. We talk about sexism where a woman puts on a bikini and can get 5,000 likes for that. And a man a woman breastfeeds on her Instagram and gets 20 likes. Because God forbid, right? Like, there's so many standards that are so corrupt. But you have to keep your blinders on, and you have to go into that platform knowing that, and whatever that platform is, TikTok, Instagram, and just know what your value is, what you want, and stay on that path, right? Don't deviate from that. You know, I talk to Saad about this often. I don't like some of the direction of LinkedIn, but I don't mind it. I don't stay into it. I don't change my directive.
Okay.
I just stay in my lane.
Saad doesn't agree, but, you know, the best thing that...
Hold on. Let Sarah go, because I cut her off. Hold on.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, I think there's a lot that happens that's not part of the vanity metrics. And, you know, I work for a decent sized corporation, and it's unbelievable how many times I'll go into a meeting and the first thing people say to me is how much they appreciate my content. And so, you know, I've battled for a long time with this fear of, you know, I don't want to do too much. Am I, you know, pushing the boundaries as far as like engaging versus what are my corporate responsibilities? And at the end of the day, I show up as me. My coworkers are benefiting, you know, but it would never show up as on the metrics because they're not liking my posts, but it's making them better employees. So I don't know.
There's that too, right? I've talked to a lot of people that have 15,000 followers, and you go to their content and it's not engaged with, right? So you start speculating, you start going all these directions with it, but then you talk to the person and their audience is just not that type of audience, right? And yet they're still killing it on the back end. Or I had a guy one time tell me he posted for 30 straight days only video, and he would only get so many likes when he switched, and it was doing really bad. So after 30 days, he turned it off and stopped like posting for like 2 weeks. Within that 2 weeks, he got over 50 messages being like, "Where are you? Why are you not posting? I loved your content." And he was like, "Then say something. What the hell? I didn't know." Like, you know, I didn't know you guys were. And so he got back into it, right? Because you just because they don't like, let's defend those people too. Like, you don't have to, but it does let people know, like, I'm onto something here. It is a sign of like, okay, at least I'm somewhere here. But there's a lot of shit that happens in the background that people don't realize off of people's posts, the leads they're driving, the business they're doing, the opportunities, you know, each to their own, right? We got to keep our blinders on. Go ahead, Nick.
I'm curious if this has happened to everybody else here, but the amount of times that I've run into somebody who it's like, and I keep track of like who likes and comments on my stuff. And it happens all the time. I run into somebody who's never liked or commented on my stuff. And like the first thing that they say is, "Oh, hey man, I've been seeing you all over LinkedIn." And I'm like, "Oh, really? Like, what the heck is going on here?"
I'll get on Zooms all the time with somebody and they're like, "Oh, I know you. Yeah. I'm well aware." Like, and I'm like, "Oh, I've never seen." No, they're like, "No, I follow you all the time." And I'm like, But also, you know, and I'm not tooting my horn, but like,
Right.
you know, once you get to like 12,000 and 10,000, it's very hard. I gained 300 followers in one day. Like, I didn't even notice, right? I can't keep up with that, but it is crazy. It is truthful. That's why, you know, the vanity, like Amir said, is only one part of the formula of LinkedIn, and it is not the be all, say all. Just because somebody's getting a lot of engagement doesn't make them an expert, doesn't make them that they're doing anything great. It's all just the eye of the beholder, and there's so much going on behind the ripple effect. You don't know what rooms you're being talked about in. Josh could be in so many rooms and have no
True.
idea, right? Like, you don't understand the ripple of what your things are being seen, or what that one person, if Nick likes my post, how many people in his network I might be impacting that I don't even know. But they're, because they saw me pop up in the feed and it said Nick Reed liked this, now I'm getting that extension too. And you just never know. That's why I try to be very intentional with LinkedIn, and I tell people to stay out of that drama and those things, because you don't know who's watching. You never know who's on your feed, who's connected to somebody that's liking your stuff. And, you know, how do you want to be perceived? If that's how you want to be perceived, go for it. Be all about yourself. I'm all about encouraging, be you, whatever that may be, but be comfortable with what the outcomes of those are going to be. Don't be pissed off after the fact and be like, well, how did that person see that, or what the hell? Dude, if you're going to put that shit out there, you got to own that stuff and know that that's the, you know, and think that far ahead, that there is LinkedIn is the only platform where it's such an organic growth. Because on Instagram, I don't know what Nick Reed likes. I can never go to his profile and see what he's doing. None of his stuff's in my feed on Instagram, right? I'm in my own little world, where LinkedIn is all about that second, third ripple connection effect of what people are liking and digesting. And that's why I'm a little intentional with my likes. Right. And that's why I'm intentional about my likes sometimes. And people are like, why do you do that? Like James Perry, Josh, you brought up, he'll like everything, all in his feed every day. He'll pour out likes to everybody. And that's okay. And I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but for me, I respect my network. And so I'd be very careful with my likes, because I know that that's going to ripple into other people's feeds. And do I want to be so it's not just a private like for me where I can hide in the shadows and say that I liked this one guru's post, right? If I like it, it's public. Everybody's going to see it and be like, Tom, what the hell? You like this person's shit? Well, yeah, I did. Like, sorry. Well, don't put that shit in my feed, dude. I don't like it. And I'm like, all right, you know, I won't do that. Because your stuff does, you know, correspond to your network and to your audience. And that's how we all connected at some point, because Josh liked my post. We got in Nick's feed. Nick liked it. Amir came along, right? And we all collaborate. That I'm a little intentional with my likes sometimes. I'll see stuff and I'm like, I love it, but I'm not going to drop a like there because I don't want it to affect my network, because that's not typically what I'm known for or the direction I want to take it. So I'll, you know, I just won't give that love, right? And what a lot of people also don't understand is they get mad when gurus don't like their stuff or the big names come around. And what I've had to tell people is sometimes they're attached to companies, advisories. They've got things in their own business world that like means something to them, right? We don't have PR companies in the sales world, right? Where some of these people don't get that PR to protect them, but those likes mean something. A competitor can't like another competitor's post, or a guru to guru or whatever, because they might, you know, I can't go like Scratchpad's post because I'm a dually advisor. Like, how would that look to Saad if he's like, what the hell are you doing, Tom? Did you even see that like you gave today? That was on Scratchpad. That's a guy from Scratchpad. And I'm like, I didn't even know. Now I feel bad, right? And so you got to pay attention to that stuff. And so sometimes people don't give you love. It is, right? Great responsibility when you think about it that way, is that your likes are important and what you're bringing into your second and third connections. And then also just know some people won't get involved in your content, not because they're not seeing it or they don't love what you're doing, but they're restricted on what they can and can't do given the relationships that they're working in their ecosystem. That it's not personal. I know a few of those. That's why I say it, because from personal experience, I've had a few that will connect with me on Twitter like crazy, but won't touch me on LinkedIn. And when I ask, it's because, Tom, I love you. I see your shit all the time, but I can't, because you got to know that we're in this space. And I'm like, hey, fair. I totally get that. Like, but I'm glad you like what I'm putting out and you enjoy it. And they're like, dude, I love your shit. But just know I can't come out there like that for you publicly just because of the brands that I'm attached to or what I'm attached to. So you just got to pay attention to that stuff. And those are some of the things that I like, you know, watch on my LinkedIn is those things.
That's an excellent point. Thank you.
Sorry, I went on such a rabbit hole.
Amir, did you want to say something?
Sorry?
I said, did you want to say something? You look like you had your hand up there for a minute.
Yes. I was talking about Tom's point. So there were two things that came up, Tom. One was, you just keep scrolling if you don't like someone's stuff. You just don't have to engage with that.
Yep.
It's as simple. We've spoken about this before, but there's no use you and me getting triggered over someone's post, because there's a ton of stuff like that out there on Facebook, Twitter, Insta, or LinkedIn, and you don't need to engage with that. Just move on from that, or block the user, or unfollow them if you just don't like. For example, toxic positivity. If you don't like it, just block all those people from your life. And the other point was, this was very interesting to me right now, what you said. And people don't realize that you and me have a relationship, and others might in different companies, but the brands themselves don't, might not allow you to interact with each other's content, which is sort of surprising, but not
It happens.
It happens.
It's not surprising at all, but that's just corporate world. That's those interactions. You look at celebrities online, you don't see Kim Kardashian liking certain stuff. Doesn't mean she doesn't like that person or doesn't want to engage with that person, but her PR will be like, yo, did you just see you like this person's thing? And somehow 2 weeks later, it pulls into her and costs her an opportunity or a business thing because she didn't even know, right?
Here's a question though.
Yeah.
But isn't LinkedIn more about your personal, I won't say brand, but your personal,
Yes.
opinions, your own thoughts, rather than the brand's thoughts? So why would,
Yes.
brands
Okay.
want to interfere in that?
Because here's a great point. What is the difference? Give me all this on your profiles, okay? LinkedIn profile, TikTok profile, Instagram profile, Twitter profile, all the platforms. What is the one difference in those profiles that LinkedIn has that your other brands don't? Go ahead, Nick.
It lists who you work for.
Right? So I'm sorry that you all believe that you have a personal brand on LinkedIn, but let's call it an unpopular opinion here. You don't. I'm sorry. You do to an extent, but you have to realize that if I go to Joshua's profile, I know the companies he's worked for, I know his people he's currently with, and every post, comment he does affects that brand. What I do on Instagram, nobody gives a shit. On Instagram and do whatever you want, Tom. It doesn't matter because people don't know where you work, right? That's different. But when you're on LinkedIn, you carry your brand in every room, just like at a networking event, just like at a conference, being on the phone with your prospects. The shit you say will bite you in the ass because you represent a brand. So I hear that point of a personal brand, and I get that. Yes, have a personal brand on LinkedIn, but understand you have your company history, you have the brands that you're attached to, and they are coming along for the ride with you and will benefit or be hurt because of how you carry yourself out there in the public, right? If you were out at Walmart right now in your company's shirt and you did something to a baby or somebody there and that shit got online, what happens to you the next day? You're fired. But I was personal. I was out on my own time. I don't give a shit. You had my brand on your name, and now I'm sucked into that stuff. You've got to go. Similar to LinkedIn. It's if I go see somebody, what's the next thing you do if you see somebody put something in a comment or a guy drops a DM on a girl being inappropriate? If that shit goes public, you're looking at that job history and blowing up that hiring manager or that company, and they just stepped in a pile of dog shit that they never wanted to because they chose to be attached to you. So I hear you on the personal brand, but you have to understand this is the only platform that publicly puts your shit out there like that of the companies that you've worked for or been associated with, and people will vet and people will dig, and you can cost your company a lot of bad things if you're out there running your mouth or behaving different or liking your competitor's stuff without realizing the repercussions because you are affecting that brand.
I think too, though, that same thing can be tipped the other direction to where people don't engage, they don't post their own thoughts, and they let the fear of those things kind of cripple them. You're talking about like being very thoughtful and making sure you're not doing something that will hurt you or your company's reputation, and I completely agree with that. But people take it too far, and it cripples them, and they are paralyzed by this fear. And I think there's a middle ground.
Oh, 100%.
But it's also really touchy, I think, because in one way, like, people are very intentional with I'm building a brand. So if I change companies, it really is my brand. Like when I change companies, people who follow me don't give a crap. Like if I change companies and they love that I support women in sales and that I support transitioning teachers, they don't care who I work for. They are going to be like, yay, you got a new job. We're so excited for you. However, where I think that where you work really plays a part, especially with being in so many sales communities, is competition. So like if you have somebody that, like, let's say, because this happens in my network, like you have one group of people that's a sales trainer and you have another group that also has a sales training platform. They're both amazing. Like I know people that work for two different competing companies, but at the end of the day, they compete. So to Tom's point, if Tom has 10,000 followers or however many followers, and he puts out there, hey, I'm connected to Girls Club or Girls Who Sell or whoever he's connected with, right? And then everybody's like, oh, he's a mentor for that. I better go check out that company. But then like, I can mention Girls Who Sell and Girls Club because I'm a member of both of those, but also they don't compete. They support each other because Girls Who Sell is young funnel and Girls Club is leadership funnel. So they don't really compete with each other. So I'm going to use those as an example. But like if Tom was mentoring for Girls Who Sell, me too, yay. If you're doing that, and then he also mentions Girls Club, what happens is his network sees both and then they start following both. So then instead of him repping just Girls Who Sell, he now unintentionally is throwing love to the competitor. So you do have to be careful with that, especially if you are a salesperson, because that's your butter, right? Like that's your bread that you're trying to get. And so you don't, as much as you might love your competitor on a personal level or connect with them one-on-one through DMs, you don't want to give them that love publicly because you don't want that cross contamination. The other thing that I see happening a lot on LinkedIn is people use their connections to better their network to help them get jobs. And that's totally cool if you've already made your company aware that you're leaving or if you're not currently employed. But if you are currently employed, what person that hasn't shared with their boss that they're leaving yet is going to post, hey, I'm open to network. I'd love to get a job. Like nobody's doing that because they know that their company is trolling them. Like they know that they're being watched by their company. So they're not going to do that. And so it's one of those, it's mixed because you can do it in the DMs and get your network to work for you, but you can't like publicly put it out there, even if you know you'd get a job faster, because if it takes you 9 interviews to get a job, guess what? That's a month where you could have gotten fired because they know you're looking. So LinkedIn is a two-edged sword. Like in one way, it's beauty of personal branding, and in another way, never ever forget that your company is attached to you. Good or bad.
I have my partnership with Dooley, right? And that's why I gave that example is, for all I know, ScratchCAD could want to offer me $10K to be an advisor and work with them, but they don't talk to me because I'm connected to Dooley. I can't be going and liking ScratchPad's content, whether, let's say Amir suddenly goes and gets a job at ScratchPad tomorrow. I might kind of have to not like his post as much. Why? Because of what he's attached to, right? And I'm the business that keeps food on my table, right? Or helps take care of me. I have to be careful. So you just have to watch that stuff, right? Is you have to have that holistic approach. And like this LinkedIn user, not a loser, whoever you are. That was so bad.
Freudian slip over here.
LinkedIn user says, right, is you do have to think holistically about the impact of your words on LinkedIn. It was a little bit different platform. And I mean, that goes for social media anywhere. Amy Volas preaches this. So many people that are in these high hiring roles and recruiters will tell you the horrific stories of people getting fired or not getting that opportunity mid-proposal, right? Straight up have the document coming to their inbox in 24 hours to get a call and say, we went a different direction. Then they find out behind the scenes it was because of something they said or posted or did that cost them that opportunity, right? So you just have to know who you are as a person, stick to that. And that's why I don't go to a brand, right? I don't post Rev Genius all the time. I'm sales development because it doesn't matter. That's never going to change. That is a topic that can go on forever and isn't a brand to any company. Just because you want to keep that lane wide and full. But certain things and opportunities come your way that if you choose to take them, it might affect the way you play the game down the road. You might miss on opportunities. Certain things, you put yourself in that hole. And that's all I'm saying is just watch your likes, watch what you do, because your brands do get to carry with you.
Well,
so two things. I have questions for Josh and for Sarah as teachers, as educators. Are teachers and educators allowed to post whatever they want to on LinkedIn? Because I see that even though they have not, made the jump.
Archer's happy.
Hey,
Yeah, I know. It depends on what district you worked in. I have a district that as long as I don't get on and go, my district sucks and blah, 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 like they don't really care. As long as I'm not doing anything negative. So I guess there is kind of that level. So as long as I'm not getting on there, but I guarantee you it's kind of like the what was discussed earlier. And like there's a prime example is there was an individual who was messaging, it's a guy that was messaging women, is like, yeah, I'm hiring for this role, and if you send me this and if you do that, we can talk about employment, which is like creepy and weird. And of course that got like blasted publicly, and guess what? That guy got fired because
Yay!
he was posting under like, hey, I work at this company. So he was acting as a representative of that company. And so, the same thing, if I, as a representative, what I do on my own time is my own time. But if I get out and create a lot of, if I say something that is like to the extreme that offends people of a certain magnitude, and they start like spamming my district level, then there might be repercussions. So I in some regards, it depends on how, I would say it depends on how ugly you're being, because there's a huge difference between me giving a opinion about like something that sucks versus saying something that's not acceptable in a general rule. So like if I reach out to Sarah, for example, and I say something completely inappropriate and then she blasts it, then yeah, I might be held to accountability because I've got my my workplace there, it like publicized. And so it kind of like, honestly, it just depends. Now, does my district care that I'm on LinkedIn talking about like applying for other jobs, or that I'm talking about, like celebrating the diversity in workplaces, or inspiring women in male dominated fields, or that like whatever? No, absolutely not. And I could probably go into the mall and like flip somebody off and I would be just fine. But like I would probably be like beside myself if I went to a mall, something has happened. But if I represent myself in such a unprofessional capacity that causes enough uproar, then almost the company itself has to do damage control to make itself look like the hero in the eyes of the public, to where they have to punish me, whether it's put me on leave or whether fire me or whatnot. But honestly, I mean, I don't know. You'd have to almost go like, screw my common senses. I'm just going to say something completely out of left field that I know is going to be wild. And speaking of stuff that's wild and people giving their opinions that nobody wants, there was it was Melissa Houston asked me, she goes, I'm kind of perplexed about this post I put out, and there was an issue with it. And what's your opinion of it? And I go, well, what's the problem? She goes, well, there was it was a friend of hers, and it was a typo that they put. So I don't like, there was a comma misplaced, and this person lost their shit so much that they went out of their way to message the person, letting them know that they had a typo, they had a grammatical issue in their post on LinkedIn. And she goes, what do you think? And I said, well, I'll let you know right now. I'm kind of petty, and I would spend hours going through everything this person typed out on LinkedIn, Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, and I'd find every comma splice, every like semicolon that was missing, every hyphen, every colon.
Don't be a Kevin.
Yeah, I'm like, listen, my degree is in grammar, so like, let me catch you slipping if you want to be holier than thou.
Do you like there and there?
Yeah. So that was, I was just like,
That's a problem.
Yeah, I was like,
There.
yeah, and I'll tell like I think I've said this to Tom. I know I've said it to Jesse a few times. Is coming from a place to where I teach paragraph writing, right? And then I come on LinkedIn and I see, and this has been like my like I don't want to say cross to bear, it make people mad, but like my burden to bear. But I'll see somebody type like a sentence or half a sentence, and then they'll skip 4 to 5 spaces, and then they'll type half another sentence, and they'll skip 4 to 5 spaces. And sometimes, and I hate to say this, and please forgive me.
I stroll on.
Yeah,
I stroll on.
I sometimes I want to like go that's incorrect grammar. Oh dear Jesus! Like it reminds me, and it's funny because like the very first time I saw this, I had just given like a lecture to my students about you don't want to write like this because it reads like I went to the store, and then I went here, and then I bought this, and then I go, it's so jarring, and then I get like
Agreed.
and then
Agreed.
and it's typed out like that, and I go, whoo. So the interesting transition, at least for me, has been like the ability to like, okay, choppy copy is cool, and I'm gonna do 2 sentences and then skip 2 spaces, 2 sentences, because that's my
Amir used to tear me up for that. Amir actually was the first one to ever stop me because when I came on to LinkedIn, that's what I started doing. A lot of my older posts 2 years ago were very broken up. I did the whole try to get you to see more, read more, right? Do the whole bait and switch to do the algo. And Amir would hit me up all the time being like, and talk about these posts. And I was like, oh shit, I didn't know any better. And so now I started to write,
that's fine
different.
though. And that's fine. I still see people doing this. But what I personally will do is I just won't engage or like those because it's annoying. I'm not going to read like 1 line and skip 2 lines and read 1 line. It breaks the mental process and it's annoying. But what I wanted to say was happy birthday, Tom. I know you got to go, but you know, I wish you all the best for 2022.
Happy birthday.
You know what? Speaking of that, we just hit an hour. So in honor of Tom's birthday, Tom, why don't you take us out? And like not literally, like I'm speaking figuratively.
Come on, y'all.
Not with extreme prejudice.
On the bill.
Like, I don't want Tom, like he's like got like black makeup on, crashing through the chimney, like. So why? What is your takeaway from our session today? And happy birthday!
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm taking off, fam, for the dinner with the wifey. Going to celebrate. It's actually tomorrow. But, you know, I really enjoyed this session with y'all. I haven't made a few. It's been a little bit hard with my son's basketball stuff. But the big takeaway today was just, you know, let LinkedIn be LinkedIn for you, right? Whatever that may look like. There's 6 of us in there, 7 of us that all do LinkedIn for different reasons, have different purpose. Really think about what you do, the actions you take, you know, and have those ripple effects. But end of the day, stay true to you and put your blinders on. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing on LinkedIn. There's 800 million people over there. Have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. And, you know, get out in there. Post. Have fun with it.
Perfect. Well, we, Amir and I and everybody else here, we appreciate everybody tuning in. And Amir, do you have any parting words for us?
Yes. LinkedIn users said happy birthday. Notice I didn't pronounce that as loser, Tom. And I wanted Sarah to have some parting words because she is the fly on the wall and I'd love for her to say something.
Unmute because my kids are loud today. You know, I appreciate that this is a process. First, I'm new. It's only been a couple of months. I've been on LinkedIn. So I feel like every week I find something different. It's a process for me figuring out what works, what posts to connect with. And had been a little overwhelming, but once I let go of that and just kind of, just like you said, Tom, make it work for you and kind of let that go, it's been fun actually and enjoyable just to kind of let it be. But I appreciate for all of you who have been on here and understand all of the ins and outs of it, are supportive of those who are just trying to figure it out. And I think it takes away of some of that imposter syndrome that I was saying to Nick and Sarah, like that's real. But I think having that encouragement for those people is amazing. So thank you for that. That's it.
Cool.
And with that, we see you next week.
Next week. Bye, guys. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Sorry. Bye, everyone. I hate that. It's so bad.
Happy pre-birth.